Hi everybody, it's Frank here. Well, I just updated one of my computers to the latest Linux Mint version 17 with a Cinnamon desktop. And I thought I'd take this time to kind of do a quick video on some of the things that you should or may want to do after you've done a fresh install of Mint 17. And the first thing we want to do is we want to get rid of this dialog. All you do is just uncheck that show this dialog at startup on the right hand bottom. If it's still in there, if you want to look for it, you can do a search and search for welcome screen. One nice thing it does have in here is the user guide. It's probably a good thing to look through that, and I recommend that maybe before you get rid of this thing. But I'm going to uncheck it, get rid of that, and at this point we will get started. Okay, so the first thing we want to do after we install our new operating system is update the software. And Mint makes this real easy. All you have to do is click on this little shield icon down here. And if I hover on that, it says I've got 92 recommended updates available already. Let's click on that and see what we've got here. And one thing we see here is we've got a level, and then we have this upgrade box here. And the upgrade checkbox, this means anything checked in here, when you click on install updates, it's going to install those. And if I scroll down this list here, 1, 2, 3 level updates, with 4 level updates, and there's a 5 level. These are not checked. And the reason is the level classification. Let me go over that real quick. Level 1 and 2 updates should generally always be installed. Level 3 packages are not tested but considered safe. And I generally install all those by default anyways. Level 4 packages are considered unsafe. And level 5 packages are considered dangerous in their terms, not mine. And generally speaking, if you want to be kind of on the cutting edge of things, you can check all these things and try new things out as they come out, and you're probably going to be just fine. But for a computer that I rely on all the time to get work done, I never install level 4 or 5 updates. So one thing we can do here is just set this up so I never even see them. So I go to Edit and then Preferences. And uncheck the visible box next to 4 and 5. And if you want to selectively install level 3 updates, you can uncheck the Safe box. It just means that they won't be checked automatically. And then you can go through there and selectively check which ones you want to install. I'm just going to leave it checked. Another one I'm going to do is uncheck Always Show Security Updates. And the reason is that level 4 and 5 does have security updates that will show up in your list as well. And I don't even want to see them. So I'm just going to do that. Click Apply and hurry up and wait. And now if we scroll down this list, we should see level 1, 2, and 3 updates only. And all of them will be ready to install. So all you have to do to install all this stuff is click Install Updates and hurry up and wait. It's going to ask you for your password, and you can have this thing running in the background while you're doing other things. Okay, through the magic of the edit button, I've zoomed ahead in time and got this done here. Now we notice that little check box on there has a little green check and it says your system is up to date. Let's click on that and just do a refresh and make sure it doesn't find anything else. And it's checking, and it has found nothing. Okay, so we're good. Now keep in mind here that if you have just installed this version, it will check for updates during the installation process. So in this one, I installed it actually a couple weeks ago. So it's picked up a bunch of updates since I installed this version here. So if you first install a thing and then check this, click refresh and you don't find anything except maybe level 4 and 5 updates, that's nothing to be worried about. It's just because it updated as it installed the operating system. Now one thing you want to do after you've installed all the updates and you've gone back in there and you checked refresh and nothing new is showing up, everything's installed, is go ahead and just restart the system to make sure everything is applied to the operating system and make sure everything's working okay. Okay, our system is all updated. It's been restarted. Everything still looks good. Our little shield icon here has a little green check mark, says our system is up to date. Wonderful. We're not quite done yet. Another thing you want to do is search for additional hardware drivers. which is a really important thing not to overlook. And to do that, we'll go into Menu, we'll go into Administration, and there's one in here called Driver Manager. Click on that and give it your password. And wait. And now the only thing that's coming up with here is this VirtualBox guest, and that's because I'm running this in the virtual machine. And what you might find here is nothing. My regular system, it found nothing here. But if you have add-on video cards or wireless cards, they'll often show up drivers for those in here. And basically what you want to do is just select the latest version of the particular driver and install it. If there's several different cards or things that it's finding drivers for, do them one at a time, restart the system afterwards, make sure everything is working good. And if it's not, sometimes you might find for video cards there might be 3 or 4 different drivers for the same card. Go online and check to make sure which one is the most current and install that. If it doesn't work right, try another one. But definitely don't overlook this step. You do want to check Driver Manager. Make sure nothing is found here that needs a special driver. Okay, the next thing we want to do, which is pretty important, is we want to install a firewall and get that set up on this machine. It's actually not all that hard to do. I'm going to show you how. What we're going to do is go into Menu and then Software Manager, put in your password, and wait. And when this comes up, just type in here in the search box, Gufw, and that's going to bring up this program called a Graphical Uncomplicated Firewall. How much better can that sound? Let's double click on that and just click on the button here to install it. And hurry up and wait. Okay, that's installed. Let's close this and go into Menu. And if you go into All Applications and then scroll down to the apps, you'll see Firewall Configuration, or you can search Firewall and it'll come up quickly. And then just open that up. And you'll need a password. Okay, that's opened up here. And by default, it's turned off. So what we're going to do is just turn it on here. And right here, right on this first page here, it kind of gives us a lot of good information on how to do things. And it's set up automatically by default to deny incoming connections and allow all outgoing connections. For normal use, that is pretty much all you need to do. That's going to make a big difference in security. And, well, some people will ask, well, how can you deny incoming connections? How can I do a search of Google or something and have Google give me a result back if I won't let any incoming connections come in? Basically, what that means is it doesn't allow any incoming connections that you don't request or you don't initiate. And if you go to Google's website and you do a search, you're initiating that response back from them. They are not creating a new connection to you, they're responding to your request. So basically, you can do all your surfing, all your whatever you want to do as normal, and this will block things like people trying to connect through a VPN to your machine or try to hack into your machine or whatever they're trying to do. Who knows what they're trying to do? And one thing to keep in mind is that if you're setting up a peer-to-peer application, or let's say a VPN or something, what you'll want to do for that, because those will be blocked by default, you can create a specific rule to allow those. I'm going to be doing a much more detailed video on setting up Firewall and go into all the details of all the different ports and how things are blocked and which ports you want to unblock for this and that. But I'm going to do that in a separate video. And for now, all you really need is this basic setup. Basically, just turn it on. If you do need to allow or deny something, let me show you quickly how to create a rule that'll modify this. We just click on Rules, and let's say we wanted to deny outgoing something. Let's say we wanted to deny BitTorrent, for example. I just click on the plus down here, and I want to click Deny Outgoing Direction, and leave category, subcategory, application, and let's just select BitTorrent. And every time you do this, it gives you this little tip here Sometimes they're pretty good, sometimes they're not very appropriate. It says remember to open the ports. Well, we're denying, so we don't need ports open. But anyway, we'll just click on add. Okay, we got rules added here. Let's close this. Okay, here's the rules it's created. It's put 4 of them in here. And what it's doing is, first one here, let's look at this and kind of analyze real quick here. What this number here is, this 6881 and the colon 6889, that means that those are port numbers, and it's blocking, it's denying outgoing these port numbers, which are associated with BitTorrent. The colon means everything in between. So 6881 to 6889, all those ports are being blocked in UDP. Now there's TCP and there's UDP. And if we look down here, we have the same thing, same port numbers, but it's blocking it in TCP. And you want to block both numbers, but they have this V6. And that's basically what this has done, is it's also created rules for IP version 6. The first 2 here are IP version 4, which is what most people use, but it's also blocking IP version 6, which is kind of nice. And that's basically how you do that. What you'll want to do is just leave this thing turned on and go ahead and just close it out here, restart your system. And good thing to do after you restart your system is just make sure the status is still on. It should be, but it's a good idea to check, make sure. Okay, next thing we want to do is we want to turn off those stupid system sounds. And I wish these things were turned off by default. The only conceivable good thing I can think about them is when you first install a new operating system and you hear that ding dong as it starts up, at least it tells you that your sound card and things are working or your sound is working properly. Other than that, I can't stand these things. So I'm going to turn them off. And what I'm going to do is go into Menu and click on the System Settings, which is this little gear icon in the corner. And scroll down here to Sound. Click on that. And in here, we'll click on the tab that says Sound Effects. And you can actually change all the different ones here. You can have different ones on and off, and you can change all the silly sounds. What I do is I just turn this thing off. I turn all of them off. I don't want to hear a thing. And just close that, and we're done. No more sounds. Okay, next up is I want to change the time settings on here. By default, the clock in the corner here is set to 24-hour time, and it doesn't tell me the date. I want to know the date and day, and I want it to be an AM PM, because unless you're in the military, 24-hour clock is just going to make you crazy. So we'll go in here to Menu, we'll go into System Settings like we did before, and we'll click on Date and Time. And the first thing you want to do is just make sure this is set for the right time zone. This is something you did when you first installed the system, but it's a good idea to just make sure it's here. In my case, Denver is within my time zone, so that's the city I used. If you need to change that, click on Unlock, put in your password, and you can change that. But what we're going to do is change this time setting. Uncheck this Use 24-hour clock, and I want to get the date here, so I'm going to display the date. Network time, what it does is it goes to a network time server on the internet to get that time and sync it. Go ahead and leave that on, that's a good thing. And then just close this out. Now if I look down here, it says it's Friday, October 10th, and it's 9:58 a.m. and that's what I want. Okay, next on the list is we want to set up our printers on this thing. And on this machine, I've got both a network printer and a local printer. I've got an HP inkjet, old ancient one here. And they're real easy to install. Just click on Menu and go to Administration and then Printers. And right now there's no printer set up. All I have to do is click on Add. And right now it's looking for local printers. Let's see what it finds. A little wheel is spinning down here. Okay, it's found my HP printer. I'll just click on that and click on the connection is good. Click on Forward. Now it's searching for the drivers. So I don't have that, so don't worry about that. There's a name, description, you can all change. Click on Apply, and you're all done. You've installed the drivers for that printer, and it's a good idea to print a test page just to make sure the printer is all working properly and everything is good. And believe it or not, that is it for installing printers in Linux Mint, as long as the drivers are in the repository. And this will also find network printers generally too. So that's all there is to it. Okay, next up is I want to install a program that'll give me hardware information, and in particular my motherboard has temperature sensors on it, and I want something that'll tell me what those temperature readings are and other information, and Mint is a little lacking in this. But there's a ton of add-on programs you can get that'll give you all this stuff, and I found a really cool one, and I'll show you how to get it. I'm going to go into Terminal to get this one. Open that up, and I'm going to type in here sudo apt-get install hardinfo and put in my password. And it's going to take a minute or so to put this thing in here. And there it is. So I'll close that and let's find that thing. Okay, so let's open that up here. Go into menu. And if we type in hardinfo, the program is actually called System Profiler and Benchmark. So we'll open that up, and oh man, is there all kinds of wild stuff in here. And we'll click on Summary, and it goes through and it figures all this stuff out. And it gives us all the neat information about our system, our username, what version of Mint we're using, display resolution, on and on and on. It even shows us our printer. And operating system, it'll tell you the kernel that you're using right now, and so forth and so on, how long it's been on. When it was booted, languages, interesting. I'm all set if I'm in Zimbabwe. And file systems, display. I mean, this is more stuff than you ever want to know here. If we go into processor, it tells me what kind of processor cores I've got available, the memory. Now, if you have this little screen down here, if you want to check on, let's say, free memory, just highlight it and it starts scanning it. Or if you want to watch, I don't know, virtual memory, just click on that and it'll start graphing that. So if you want to look at something or page tables or whatever, it does that. Pretty cool. And there's a huge long list. You got to be either having some wicked hardware problems or a total geek to spend much time with this. I've spent about an hour with it. Sensors. And normally this is where it'll give me those temperature sensors that I'm looking for. Since this is in a virtual machine, it doesn't know about that. But on the regular computer, this is where I click on this and it'll show me all the temperatures in real time that my system is working at. It's kind of a cool thing to do here. Network interfaces. This is all the IP connections that are happening right now. And things that are open. It'll show you a routing table, ARP table, DNS, blah, blah, blah. Statistics. Oh man, this is way more than you want to know. It'll also do benchmarks like CPU blowfish here. Let's see how fast this virtual machine really is here. It's a score of 6.01, and compared to a PowerPC 740, 280 megahertz, what decade was that built in? You can see it's a whole bunch faster than that because a lower number is better. This one's 172 and mine's 6. So anyway, that's kind of fun, and a bunch more of them over here. So that's it. Kind of a cool thing to do, especially if you're doing troubleshooting or if you just want to know what everything is doing. This is a great program to have on here. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to install some Microsoft software. What? Yeah. What we're going to do is install the Microsoft TrueType core fonts for the web. And you can do that in Linux, and it's a really good thing because a lot of times you're going to be working with programs that are in LibreOffice, and you might be working back and forth on something that somebody did in Microsoft Word, and you want to be able to view and edit and add things and write documents with the same fonts that Microsoft uses. And let's look in our font list here. Let's see if they have Arial. Arial's a TrueType font. Not in here. Okay, we'll close that out, and I'll show you how to get those. We'll go down here into Software Manager, enter our password, and hurry up and wait. And in the search box, just search for Microsoft. And the second one up here is what we want. It's the installer for Microsoft TrueType core fonts. And I'll just open that. And there's a list of the fonts that it's going to install here. And one of them is Arial, Andale, Arial Bold, blah, 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 blah. So that's what I want. Click on Install. And this only takes a short little while here. And now, believe it or not, you have to agree to an end user license from Microsoft. Okay, no problem. We like Microsoft, don't we? And we just wait for this to finish up here. Takes a little bit of time, not too much. There we go, done. Now let's close that out. Now let's go back into Office Writer here and check our fonts. And there we have it. We have Arial, Andale, Arial Black, on and on. We're set. Very useful. Okay, next up is let's do some settings in Firefox and get that happy for us. So I'll open that up. And the first thing we're going to do is go into Edit and Preferences. And what I want to do here, when Firefox starts up, it's going to show this home page. And by default, the home page is this nice Linux Mint thing, which has some useful news on there and so forth. I don't want that. And you can actually have two different settings here. You can have a page that comes up when Firefox starts, and then you can have a home page, and they're separate things. So what I want to do when Firefox starts, I want to have a blank page. I don't want anything up here. And what that's going to do is it doesn't take the time to load a page when I start it up. So I can start up Firefox, and let's say I want to do a quick search or go to someplace quickly. I don't want to wait for this other page to load up. It's just a waste of time. But I still want my home page. So if I close Firefox and reopen it, it's going to open up to this. It might be a little bit quicker, but there's nothing on there. And that's the way I like it. But if I click my home button over here, it'll still go to my home page, so I can view my home page when I want to, which is actually much better. And let me show you kind of a neat trick in there. You can actually have it open multiple tabs, multiple pages as your home page. Let me show you how to do that. I'll minimize that. Let's say I wanted to have this as my home page, because I want to have latest news from the Linux Mint blog, no doubt. But I also wanted to have, I don't know, the latest stock reports on the market. Let's see what the market is doing. It was in the toilet yesterday. So in this other tab, I'll open up a page here for Market Watch. It'll show me the major indexes, what they're doing. And let's say I wanted another one. Let's say I wanted the same thing, except I want a particular symbol. I'm just going to type something random here. Let's see what it gives me. Let's say I wanted to follow this stock here and see what its price is doing every day. And let's say there was another one. Oh, Apple. All right, let's see what Apple's doing with that. So let's say I want to have all of these open. All I have to do is go back into my preferences, and for the home page, just click on Use Current Pages. And it'll have all those pages in there separated with a pipe symbol. And just close that. Let me show you. Close that. Get out of there. Now I open it back up. It should open up to that blank page. And if I want to check all those things, I just click on Home, and now we can see that it's actually loading all those pages that I have, and they'll be updated too. There we go. So it's kind of cool if you have a number of things that you want to keep track of during the day, but you don't want to have all this stuff start loading when you first open up the browser. That's a neat way to do that. Okay, so let's go back into Preferences, Edit Preferences, and click on the Content tab. And what I do is I make sure the block pop-up windows is open. If you do run into certain sites, which you will once in a while, that have to have a window that opens in a pop-up, you can always add an exception. It'll ask you if you want to. And right now there's none, so that's what we want. And now let's click on Privacy tab. I want to tell sites that I do not want to be tracked, so I'll check that. That doesn't actually force anything. It just kind of puts a code in there. It says that, if you're paying attention, this person would rather not be tracked. Another thing I want to do here is Firefox history. What I do is, on my systems, I put in here never remember history. And I'm going to cancel this because I don't want to restart it right now. And what that's going to do is it's going to basically operate in private browsing mode always. And what it'll do is it will not save any cookies, and it will not save any temporary files or pages visited or anything like that. I use it. I think it's nice. Another thing you can do is click Use Custom Settings for History. And here, if I check Use Private Browsing Mode, it'll be the same thing I just did, so we don't want that. And you can tell it to not remember your browsing and download history, which would be good. You can tell it to remember or not search and form history. It's kind of something I don't do, so I'd uncheck that. And this also regulates cookies. And you can set exceptions for different sites that you want to have to accept cookies from or not. Down here, accept third-party cookies. This should always be never. And another thing you can do is keep until is change this to I close Firefox. And what this will do is basically when you close Firefox, it'll delete all the cookies. Another thing that's a good idea is clear history when Firefox closes. And then there's exceptions and things that you can set up in here as well. That's another option if you do want to have cookies from certain sites and you don't want to be in private browsing mode all the time. Another thing I do down here is the location bar is I don't want it to suggest anything. It can be kind of nice, but it can be mostly annoying, so I tell it not to suggest anything. So let's go to the security tab, and we want to leave these 3 boxes checked here. We don't want sites to install add-ons without letting us know. And you can make exceptions, and there's a couple that are in here by default. Another thing I recommend you do is uncheck remember passwords for sites and make sure you don't use a master password. It's not very secure, and it's also a good way to forget all your passwords, because what happens if you have all these passwords remembered by Firefox and Firefox loses its mind here and doesn't work anymore, or your system crashes or something? Now you don't know all your passwords. So it's a security issue. It's also kind of a good idea not to do this, just so you don't lose all your passwords if something goes wrong. Now let's click on the Advanced tab and click on Data Choices. And these things I like to turn off. I don't want their health report. It sends information to Firefox when something goes wrong, and Crash Reporter as well. I turn those things off. And you can see this little message here, Firefox automatically sends some data so we can improve your experience. Yeah, we don't want that. Much as we like Firefox, I don't think they need that information. Okay, next we're going to click on the Network tab. And under Offline Web Content and User Data, what we want to do is make sure this is checked and make sure there's no exceptions in here. And there's not by default. That's all we want to do here. And that's it for this. We'll close that out. Now we're going to go into Tools and Add-ons, and let's see what's stuck in here. And I'm going to go into Plugins, and by default there's a bunch of stuff already put in here, and some of this stuff it's all set to ask to activate. And there's some of this stuff I don't want activated at all, and one of them is Ice-T Web Plugin, and what that is it executes Java applets. I don't want Java to run. You really don't need it. And I'm going to never activate Java. Java is a security risk that you don't need. And the same thing with Shockwave Flash. I'm going to never activate that one as well for the same reason. And this other stuff, I'll just leave that as ask to activate. And then we'll click on extensions up here. And in extensions, we see that there's a couple of things installed here by default. And both of them are totally unnecessary. The search enhancer is, I think there's some kind of revenue generation based on search results here for Mint. And the stylish, I don't know what that's good for. And both of these things are really not necessary. They can hinder performance, and they can give you some pretty odd results too. So definitely you want to disable both of these. And they'll be disabled after you restart Firefox. So that's just a general good idea. Okay, another thing we want to do with Firefox, if I open that up here, is you'll notice that the default search engine here is Yahoo, and there's a reason for that. And the reason is that when you do searches in Yahoo, Mint actually gets a tiny little bit of money out of that, which is not a bad thing for Mint and something I would support. But I don't want to use Yahoo. I want to use Google, and probably 99% of all the rest of the world does. So if we click on this little down arrow, there is no Google. So to fix that, we'll click on Manage Search Engines, still not in the list, and then click on Get More Search Engines. And it's going to open up this web page down here, and then it kind of explains everything, why they do this, why these options are here, which are all good reasons, but People want Google. So all you do is come down here and you see the little Google icon down here. Just click on that icon. And when this page comes up, just go back to that little drop down and select Add Google. If we close out of that and open that back up, now I've got my Google search here, which is what I wanted. Okay, we're just about done here. We're going to do a few little simple tweaks here that I like to do. And what we're going to do is go into the system settings here, click on this little gear on the left side. And the first thing I recommend we do is click on Effects and disable all the desktop effects. And the reason to do that is it just speeds things up. In some cases, you'd be surprised how much resources some of these silly effects use up. I just turn them off. I recommend you do too. Go back here into All Settings, and it takes us back to where we were. Next thing I want to do is click on Window Tiling and Edge Flip. And what this is basically is like Windows Snap, where it'll pop into place like that. I don't know about you, you may like this. I don't like it. I hate this thing. The very first video I did was how to turn off Windows 7 Snap. So I don't like moving things around and having them suddenly pop somewhere else. So I just turn that off. Just uncheck that. That's all you do. Go back to All Settings. And we're going to do one last thing here. And that is Power Management. And we'll go down to Power Management. Now this really applies on a desktop machine. If you're using a laptop, you may want to leave these settings like they are. But for a desktop, the last thing I want to have happen is my screen get turned off. So I'm going to set that to never. I never want to have a screensaver because I never want to have a screen turned off. And you can also check this when the power button is pressed to shut down immediately. That's kind of nice too. And we're done there. That's all there is to it. Okay, that's about it for all these steps that we want to take after a fresh install of Linux Mint. And what we're going to do now, everything is looking good, is just going to sweep the floors and clean up afterwards, make sure there's no excess trash laying around. And going to go into terminal here and do sudo for super user do apt-get auto remove. Put in the password. And what this does is if there's any files that have become orphaned in here and they're still sitting in your system that are just junk that you don't want to have in there, you don't want taking up resources, this will search for those and find them. And if it finds anything, it'll ask you if you want to get rid of it. In this case, it found 0, 0, 0. So we're all good here. And that's really the last thing we want to do. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you found that useful and informative. And if you did, give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. I got lots more stuff on the way here, videos coming out. So if you want to, subscribe and you won't be left out when they do come out. If there are certain things that you like to install, certain software packages that you like better than others, certain utilities that are very helpful, do put that in the comments and let's share that with everybody. And until next time, cheers.